Welcome to the InStory show. I'm Devorah Spilman, your host, and our theme this season is what does it mean to expand into a new story? And how do you come out of hiding and dare to be seen for who you really are by saying yes to your soul and telling your story? So today I am thrilled to welcome Crista Cloutier. Hi, Crista.
Hi, Devorah. How are you?
Good. So I'm going to read a bit about you and then we'll dive in. Crista is a business coach for artists. As the founder of The Working Artist, she's guided artists in 80 plus countries to career success. Crista is the author of the forthcoming book, The Artist's Flight Manual, From Feather to Wings of Success. She's been named an influencer in the contemporary art world by LinkedIn as a fellow of the Royal Society of Art and received the 2025 gold medal for her contributions to culture by the French Academy of Arts, Science, and Letters. Krista's dream is to fill the world with artists who work. I'm going to hear more about that. All right, but just like I like to ask everybody, I'd love for you to share a little bit about what does expanding into a new story mean to you?
Expanding into a new story. You know what? I'll tell you a story to tell you, to show you what it means. Because I remember when I first expanded into a new story, I was working as an art dealer and I had gotten this job out of college. I'd been an art student and needed a job to pay those bills. And I got a job working at a very well-known art studio. And my job was to help the sales manager. And it turns out I was so good at it, then within a year, I was director of the whole company. And my career just took off. I was flying all around the country. I was selling art all around the world. I was working with blue chip artists. I was introducing unknown artists to the marketplace. And I was living a very big life. And what happened was one day a man came into the studio, and this happened a lot. An artist came in and he was, dragging a portfolio, and we didn't have an appointment. And I had an exhibition opening that night. I was super busy. He started showing me his stuff. I didn't have time. It wasn't even what I represented. And I thanked him, but told him, no, thank you. And he started to head for the door. And then he turned around and he was started to cry. And he wanted to be an artist so badly, but he didn't know how. He didn't know how to get those doors to open. He didn't know where to go or what to do. And he was asking me, like, who can help me? And I was so mortified. I mean, my heart just broke for him. So I stopped everything I was doing and we sat down together and I really looked at his art. I really spent time with him and talked him through his questions. And what occurred to me was that my job had changed my relationship with art, where it had once been something that I was so in love with. I still loved it, but now it had become a commodity, right? I saw it in a completely different way. I had a much different relationship with it. And after that experience with that artist, I didn't fit in my job anymore. I couldn't go back in the box and I needed to expand. But sometimes we don't know what that looks like.
Right.
Sometimes we're in that box and we feel the discomfort, but we're like, what? And it doesn't show itself. And you can't just like change, if you don't know where you're going or what you want.
So first of all, I think that's a beautiful way of describing what happens to a lot of people, that the thing you think is the perfect fit suddenly is too tight.
Yes.
It just doesn't fit anymore. So keep going. So what did you do?
I kept doing my job and I became less and less happy, more and more stressed out, started to develop symptoms, kept looking for, maybe I need to work in New York. Maybe I need to, work in LA. Maybe I need to open, another gallery. Maybe I need to expand. There were just all these different ideas. And one day a friend came into my office and we were having a cup of coffee and he was complaining about his job. He was an architect. And we were just talking, complaining the way people do about their jobs sometimes. And he said, God, if I could do anything, if I could do anything I want, I would sell everything I own and move to the south of France. And that just hit me like that because when I was in art school, I had taken a semester in the south of France. Actually, I spent a whole year in the south of France in a tiny little village that had a tiny little school for American art students. And that was the last time I had felt truly creative in my own right. My job was very creative, but I was always collaborating in my own creativity, my own voice. That was the last time. And I became possessed with this idea like, I need to sell everything I own and move to the south of France. And it seemed like the most ridiculous idea in the world, but it wouldn't let go. And I remember I was going back and forth about it, back and forth, and like making my list of pros and cons. And there was like nobody moves to the south of France. That doesn't just happen. And I was someone brought the mail in, and there was this art magazine, and I opened it up and I was thumbing through it, and there was this article, and it was on an artist who lived in that tiny little village in the south of France. 400 people in that village. And that was a magazine I rarely even read, too. And I just saw that as my sign. And I left my job, I sold all my positions, and I moved to that tiny village in the south of France without knowing anyone or speaking a word of French. Well, I spoke a little tiny bit of French, but not enough to live in France. But I did it.
Wow. And how long between when you had that conversation with that artist who was crying until you actually quit your job? Like how many years went by between?
I would say maybe a year.
Oh, not so long.
Not so long, no, but I'd been doing that job for 10 years.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
and what do you think helped you stay strong in the face of what probably everybody said to you? Do you get a lot of detractors from this concept?
I was going to say wine. Um, um, it was, I wish I could say that it was like really graceful and I was like, no, I'm going to do this. I was
No.
sobbing all the time. My back was killing me. Everybody told me not to do it, that I was insane. It was just sheer will. I
Mhm.
just felt that something was calling me to expand. And this goes back to your question. You can't wait for
Mm.
the world to create that space for you. You have to go dig the hole and make that space yourself. You need to take the first step and sometimes the second and the third too. But that space is always there if you're willing to do the steps.
That's why I love so much when people tell their stories because it's not pretty in the beginning when you do this. I've had other people tell their stories too. And yet tell people where you're sitting right now.
In that tiny village in the south of France,
Right.
which is
So,
now my home.
right. But so tell us a few other of but it's not like we talked a little before. So I know this wasn't a just blissful, continuous staying in this little village in the south of France, but I just love the fact that that's where you are now.
Hmm.
And so I want people to have the courage that these stories we give each other to do the hard work to
Hmm.
change. But tell us a couple more pieces of what happened to you along the way and how you kept getting back up and not quitting on yourself.
Hmm. When I moved here, it was winter. I was living in a house that had no heat. I'm from Arizona. I had no idea how to build a fire. I thought they turned off and on with a switch. I literally did. And I couldn't find the switch to turn on the fireplace. It was, I was totally ill prepared for life in France. And I was living very remotely too. So I was lonely. I was scared. My phone, which I used to be married to, never rang. Um, I was sure that I had just destroyed my whole life and my whole career and made a massive, massive mistake. And something really magical happened. When I had been at that school 10, 13 years before, I had three friends who were also like American art students. And we had hung out together and we had, just been really close friends and had a great experience together. And then, over the 13 years, we each moved away and did our own thing and lost touch with each other. So there I was in the south of France, like nothing to do, no one to talk to. And I saw that the school was going to have an exhibition. So I thought, people and free wine. I'll go to that. That'll be something to do. And they'll speak English and it'll be fantastic. So I went and I looked up, and there were those three friends. And they had done the same thing as me. Each independent of each other. We had all arrived within a few weeks of each other. We didn't know what had called us back to this place. We were all
Wow.
at different points in our lives. We all had different stories, but the point is that we all came back and we found each other. And then we were able to support each other. So I spent that year in France and had like my three best friends with me to help me get through it. And
Wow.
it's just one of those, if you jump, the universe catches you sort of stories. And sometimes the universe lets you bounce a little bit, but you got
Like
to
a
get you
fighter.
got to be comfortable with it. You got to roll with it. But if you really believe and you're really doing the work, you're going to be okay.
Wow. When you said that all three of them came back, I literally had chills through my body
Yeah,
because that is impossible.
I know. I
Like it's
know.
not a thing. And that's when what I like to think about is like you're making decisions from a different paradigm, right? We're used to making decisions from the external logical steps.
Mhm.
But whenever someone makes the kind of change you're talking about, it doesn't come from that place. It comes from another kind of more expanded spiritual knowing. And then
Yeah,
the benefits also come from that same impossible,
yeah,
illogical place. And I think that's what we're being called to do and model for each other is to honor this other way of knowing. I don't know. What do you think about that?
right. I think that's so true. And I think that's so true. And I think you can't be afraid of the failures
Hmm.
because they're pointing you,
Hmm.
right? That's how you find your way is through the failures from bouncing around. It's yeah, it's not always pretty, this journey. We wish it was, and I sold everything I owned and I moved to the south of France and it was lovely and it wasn't. It was bloody hard and I was bloody lonely, but I learned how to be by myself, which was brand new for me. I learned how to live without my phone, which was also brand new for me. I learned a whole new way of being in the world. And that's the qualities that I lead with when I teach now, what I learned from the difficult times. Um, yeah, I ended up meeting a guy. I had been visiting London while I was living in France, and I met this guy, and he would come to England or to France and visit me. And then eventually I moved to England and we got married. And I was still having a hard time, like making a living and really getting doors to open. And I kept wondering, like, did I make the right decision? Did I make the right, you question yourself when things don't just happen the way you want them to. And I ended up getting a job in a gallery. I say had something to fall back on. Everyone said you could work in a gallery. You've always got something to fall back on. But I'd always said I won't do that because I want to fall forward. But at one point, I had to fall back. So
Hmm.
I fell back. I got a job in a gallery, and the gallery went bankrupt before they paid me. And they owed me for months of work. And so I went bankrupt. And I
Wow.
was beside myself, like, universe, what are you doing? You told me to jump and I jumped. And what? I've had like a really expensive vacation. But now what? And it was when I was at that down point that someone said to me, why don't you teach artists how to sell art? You know how to sell art. And I was like, ding. And I thought, well, let me look on my computer and see what I have from my old life that I could maybe cobble together. And when I went back to my computer, I saw that after that man had left my gallery, that artist, a few years before by that time, 2 years before, um, he had asked me, like, where can I go? Who can help me? How can I find this information? And I had started to look for him and I couldn't find anything. So I had put together a 9-week syllabus and I'd put together a whole book outline. So the working artist was already there waiting for me on my hard drive. I'd just completely forgotten about it.
Wow.
So that caught me. And then I started teaching right away. It just took off and led to this whole new life.
Wow. Wow. All right, but you ended up back in France.
Yeah.
You didn't stay in England. So I just want to hear the last little bit that brings us up to the moment.
Well, I love living in England, and it did give me an opportunity to teach in person, to teach all over the world, and I had a great base. And London is an amazing city, and also, yeah, it gives you a lot of courage to be in a big city because I hadn't lived in a big city before. So to see that I could uh, operate on that stage did a lot for my confidence. And then about 7 years later, my husband decided that he loved his ex-wife and he wanted to go back.
Oh,
And I thought, oh, shoot, what am I going to do? Um, because London is a really expensive city. I was teaching my workshops, but teaching workshops isn't the London rent. And if I went back to America, that would mean that I had nothing there. I didn't even own a toaster. So I'd probably have to live with my parents and start over. That wasn't really what I wanted to do. And I remember I was sitting on the couch crying, and I kept hearing, like, what does your heart want? My heart kept saying, well, I want to go back to that village. I was like, you can't. That's stupid. It's too expensive. Well, what does your heart want? I want to go back to that village. You can't, on and on and on. And finally, I decided to just look online at Airbnbs. And sure enough, they were really expensive and it was summertime. And so I thought, well, I'll just go there to figure it out. And I booked 2 weeks at an Airbnb and thought, that's just stupid. I'm going to go there for 2 weeks. Then I have to go to America and live with my parents and I'll be even more broke. But the next day, I got a call from a woman I had known in that village. And I've been back there in like 7 years. And she said, hey, there's this guy here and he has a house and he has to move back to the States to take care of his mother, but he wants someone to come look after his cat for 5 months. Do you want to move back to France for 5 months? And so I lost the money on the Airbnb, which I don't care about because I lived in that house for 5 years.
wow.
And yeah, and I'm still here. I'm still here.
Wow. Yeah. So that it's like another example of like your friends all being in the place, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
just when you needed it, here's this.
Yeah. I almost wonder if I hadn't booked that Airbnb,
Right.
like that was me taking a little leap of faith. This is the
Right.
most I can afford. And it was like, okay, come on, I got you.
Yeah, it's such a good, your story is such a wonderful example of how hard it is to trust that knowing, but how
Mhm.
much it works in the end.
Yes,
If you really get that, it's like you said, what does my heart want? Not what does my head say, not what does everybody else say, not what does
right.
society say. Like it's just going against the norm often.
Yes,
And
yes.
I think we're being called, I call it saying yes to your soul, right?
Hmm.
And then telling your story. So I would love to hear now a little bit about what is happening in your work world. Like what are you doing with artists now? What have you discovered? Because the other thing I love is when you said, "Oh, I have to integrate what I used to do with what I do now." And I think sometimes that's the other thing people forget is when you've had some really successful career and you're not going to do that anymore, you don't have to throw out everything about it
No,
to bring it on over here into this other super cool part of yourself. So,
right. It wasn't wrong.
right.
It was never wrong. It was never
Right.
wasted. It's a part of it. And I always tell artists, your art is not here to support you. You are here to support your art. And I
Mm,
think that's true of any dream.
yeah.
So many people are waiting for their dream to like give them enough money to make up for what they're going to lose in their, in their salary. And no, you have to support your dream.
Mhm.
And it's important to travel light on this journey, I think, because it's
Mhm.
hard to pivot like that. If I know, I mean, I had a big house when I was an art dealer, just full of stuff, had a big storage space full of more stuff. And it was really hard to let go.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like what you said about, I love what you said about don't make your art support you. You need to support it. Don't make your vision support it. So I often tell people, keep the thing that's making you money in the
Yes.
beginning, but then build the new thing at the same time. Don't
Hmm.
say it's all one, I mean, sometimes some people say if I don't leave this job, I will die. Okay, so then leave
Right.
the job. But
Right.
sometimes you get that vision of the new thing before it's that bad.
Yeah.
But what
Yeah.
are some other things that really are helping your artists to sell their art? Because I find not just visual artists, but anyone who's trying to sell something that is their pure creative, either their
Mhm.
intuitive readings, their healings, their art, their guidance, whatever it is, they are very afraid to sell it. Like, oh, I don't want to be the used car salesman selling a lemon. I don't want to
Right.
be an egomaniac, whatever. There's all these things that are come in. So I'm wondering what have you found has been helping you help artists sell their own work, right? It was different when you were selling other people's work.
Right. Absolutely. I think too many times, especially with artists, I hear them say, like, I don't want to sell myself. And
Right.
it's like you're not selling yourself, you're selling your work. Do you think your work has worth or value? Then share that with the world. That's that's a totally different energy. You're selling your work, and your work done in service um, does sell easier.
Right. Right. I completely agree with you because I'll often say we are a spiritual tribe. Like
Hmm.
anyone who lands in this summit and any of the things that we all do, you have a spiritual calling on your soul. So we know we're doing this for a higher purpose. Like we just know that. And that, I think that makes a big difference when you know you're in service to something bigger than yourself,
Yeah.
right? So say a little more about what else you've discovered that is helping your artists.
Well, there's the social media world, there's the AI world, there's all these layers, there's all these tools, there's all these things. And those are tools and they are good, but you don't have to feel compelled to do everything.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing is to get really real with yourself about who you are, what your work is about, who it's for.
Hmm.
And rich people or everybody isn't an audience, to get much more clear on that and
Hmm.
really listen to people when you talk to them about your art, or if they're making compliments on your art, ask them questions, find out more about them, because they're going to lead you to more like them.
Hmm.
So once you know who they are and you know where they are and you know what kind of conversations they're interested in, you can you can choose accordingly instead of throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. I tried Instagram, but it didn't work. Like, what does that mean? It's a waste of time, quite frankly. And it's a lot of noise, and it's just adding to more noise. And don't be discouraged either, because everyone is looking they're scrolling with their thumb, and you're making work from the heart. It's really hard to get people to stop scrolling with their thumb and to really pay attention and connect with something. And real art is about real connection.
Hmm. I think that's why I love when visual artists start to figure out how to add words to their images,
Me too.
right? Like, how do you speak about what your art, because it's not the first, often for visual artists, that's not their first area of comfort.
Mm-mm.
And like you said, it's visual storytelling in art, but sometimes in order to get a person to even begin to connect, they want to, that's why I love people to tell their stories. That when they hear your story, then your art lands inside of them in a different
Mm.
place.
Yeah.
Um, so I think I agree with that. And I hope that, people listening are going to go, okay, all of me is here. Like, I don't have to
Yeah.
hide behind my art.
Yeah.
All of me is part of who I am as an artist.
And I want to add something to that because it's more than just all of me. I mean, a lot of times I'll ask artists like, well, what's your work about? And they say, what's about my innermost feelings? And that's just not interesting to buyers
Right, that's
because
true.
frankly, no one cares about your innermost feelings.
Right.
They
That's
care
so true.
about their
You
innermost.
know, right. That's so true.
So if you can tell your story or share your work story, it doesn't, you don't even have to talk about yourself that much, but the ideas behind your work so that people can see themselves in it. They can see their world in it. They'll be drawn in.
Right. Right. That's so true. I often say no one cares about your story. They only care about their own story.
Yes.
Right. Like I want you to tell their story, not because they care about what happened to you, but because your story helps other people see what
Yes.
might be possible for them.
Right. They can see themselves in you.
Right. Right. That's so true.
Hmm.
What is that bigger vision? And feeling that sense of what changed in you? What difference does it
Hmm.
make? Why does it matter? So I really, that's such an important point.
Yeah.
Right? That's a very important point. All right, well, tell us a little bit about your free gift that's going to help people in your world take a few steps forward.
Sure. My free gift is a video, and it's called The Three Secrets of Great Artists. And it's not just for artists, it's really the three secrets to greatness. It's three stories, amazing stories that will really surprise you, but also give you the guidance for the things that really take someone from here to there. Because
Mhm.
I've worked with a lot of great artists in my career. I've worked with a lot of blue chip artists, people who are in the history books. And these are the three traits that I found they all shared.
Okay, that's great because we constantly there's a tendency for new creative spiritual folks to beat ourselves up to, how do
Hmm.
you walk through the not good enough, not worthy, all, and that it takes that same kind of other knowing and courage that it's a bigger picture. Like you said, it's not just about your inner feelings. There's something bigger. Uh,
Yeah, that's what art is about. It's a
yeah,
universal language, and
yeah.
we are conduits for it. We are like shaman in so many ways. We go to another side and we come back and share what we've learned. So that's why we have to do this kind of work on ourselves. That's why we go to summits like this, so we can do this kind of work on ourselves and come back and use our art to share what we've learned.
So beautiful. I was going to say, leave us with a few last words to inspire us. Well, those were great. You can add a couple more, but that was so beautifully said. But yeah, we're going to wrap up, but just go ahead and leave us with one more thought that comes to you that maybe you didn't say yet or that you want to emphasize. Oh,
If it's okay, I'm going to leave you with the thought that I started with.
mhm,
Your art, your purpose, your dream is not here to support you.
mhm.
You are here to support it. So go forth and expand into that space before it's even made room for you yet. Just start pushing things out of the way and have faith and stay with it. And don't be afraid of failing because there's no such thing.
And you don't have to do it alone.
No,
Now we
no.
have each other. We can
Yes,
find each other. That's a big part of summits is that we can find each other. So if
yes.
you're an artist listening to Krista going, then get the free gift. Watch it. Reach out to her because sitting alone at home by yourself in the spin cycle doesn't work.
No,
So,
no.
like Krista, you've been around the block with this and you have so many gifts and so integrated that if you are an artist, I know that if you connect with Krista, you'll feel unstuck from something that's held you stuck. And that's part of our goal is to help each other to kind of come out of that stuck place so we can bring these gifts out in the world. So, Krista, thank you so much.
Oh, Devorah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And everybody, thank you for joining us. Come find us in the Facebook group, the InStory World that goes with the show. We'll be there to support you, to answer questions. And as I always say in farewell, remember to go out in the world, share your story, live your purpose, and be a blessing. Bye, folks.